Hey folks, it's Ben. We're here returning with another video. This one is 8 years later. I did a video 8 years ago on how to replace the exterior door handle on a 1998 Chevy Silverado. And after 8 years of use, this thing is worn out, I guess is the term. But the long story short of it is the bolt on this side, actually, I'm hoping it fell out, like it backed itself off and fell out, but it became really loose. And then somehow along the lines, the lock actually released itself and it slowly pushed its way in, and at this point now, so the only thing holding it in is this bolt right here, and then finally it stopped working entirely, which means the rod probably also fell off at this point. So that installation, 8 years is fairly decent, right? That's pretty good. So I did buy a new one. This one's from Rock Auto and it's a similar design. I was hoping it would come with the screws because I think I'm going to have to dink around with a magnet. I'm hoping it backed off and fell down and I can find it again. So I'll have my 2 bolts I'll need. In theory, I shouldn't actually have to replace it, but like I said, I bought this under the assumption it came with new screws and it didn't. So, but if we have it off, we might as well put it in again anyway. Same idea as my original video. A lot of people don't like that video because I didn't show the reassembly of the door. I just kind of showed you how to tear it apart and assumed you could do the rest. I've since looked at a couple other videos, and my video is actually fairly decent in regards to I don't take the inner panel off. But I did learn a couple tips and tricks to do as well, so we'll play with that. But here we go, guys. Let's take the door off. I'm not going to narrate a lot. Those are working out for me, those kind of videos. So we're just going to go ahead and tear apart the door, and I'll talk when I need to. Hoping to only use these 4 tools here. We've got a Phillips screwdriver for these 2 Phillips on the door handle here. Then we have a variety of prying tools. We got a flatter bar. Ideally, an upholstery trim remover would be the best, but if you're like me, you don't have one. We have another actually like a nail puller, and then this is actually handy because we have a bunch of plastic pins that are here that we're going to actually extract from the door, so we can get in there, pop them, and hopefully not break them. That being said, I do have a couple of replacements if we do break them. Learned a long time ago, it's always nice to have replacements for those. So first thing I'm actually going to do is pry this guy off, and this is actually it's just like that. There's this rubber pin you see here and it's kind of clipped in the top there. Then I think there is a screw. Nope, that's just sitting there, so we don't even have to pull that plug. I wonder why they put that in there. Interesting. Yeah, it's just a plug. I don't think it's attached, so these screws next. Next, I guess the best way to release this trim piece on this here is actually from the inside gap and kind of lift up. I guess they release that way. So you can kind of just pop it off like so with a flathead screwdriver. Try not to break it, like me. Bottom one here, I gotta grab. There we go. You can see the clips, and I broke that one on the previous adventure, but it's out. Then I learned that this actually clips off as well if you pry it from the back. There's a couple clips in here. In theory, if I lift up, she'll come out. And slide forward, and that gives us access to all these wires, which we can then unplug here and get this whole assembly right out of the way. So that's free now. And same goes for back here on our light. It also clips off from the back. You don't break the light like I probably just did. And that lets you unplug the lamp here. The plug became undone. No, you plug the whole link, and that's been burnt out since I burnt it out last time. Next up, we have our clips, and this is the funnest part. There's 4 along the bottom, I think 3 up this side. Finding them is the pain in the butt. But if you can really just pull on the door, they'll pop out. There's one. Once you get one out, you can kind of peek in there and see where they live. 2. Have to go up. There's 3, 4. There's 2 there. Good. Getting it around. You have to be a little vicious with it, unfortunately. Not a lot of finesse. Come on. There we go. Once that's up, you should be able to lift the door up and out of the way. And with all our wires disconnected, we can just take this piece and set it aside. Now, if you were just changing out your external handle, like in the previous video, you've got your bolt here and your bolt here. This of course confirms that our bolt is metal. This is a magnet, and through the little door air vent here, I'm hoping I can kind of screech under the bottom there, because indeed the one through this hole is missing. So let me see if I can scrounge up my previous bolt without dropping my magnet in there and needing another magnet tool to get my magnet tool. Yay, and there it is. So there's my little bolt that would live up here that let my handle go. So with that one out, and it doesn't look broken, it's just a stubby little guy. We'll take this one out, and then we'll hopefully be able to manhandle everything on the outside of the door, and we won't have to release this inner panel. But I do know if we need to, we can actually release a bunch of these 7mm bolts and kind of pull it back a little bit, give us a little wiggle room to undo some rods if we have to. This should be hand tight, to be honest with you. That's also a little stubby guy. Now that's free. At this point, you'd have to try to release the lock cylinder, but that's not the case here. And of course, that's already broken too, so it just came right out. But we have these rods back here, and here's the lock rod, and it's still connected. And we have our door release lever in here somewhere. It may have fallen down, that our door uses. So we might not need to release anything at all. I think I actually have to pull the panel back to start this bolt, which I clearly didn't put on the right way. And the door latch release is in there somewhere. I have to dig around for it. There's technically nothing wrong with this. It just lost its bolt, and then the rod fell off. And the lock clip is weak. And I'm trying to, yeah, there it is there. It just, that may have been a completely separate incident, or this being so wiggly helped wiggle it out. So we're okay there too. But we'll put the new one in because we own it. I'm going to take 7mm, remove most of these, and try to pull the door panel back a little bit, and I'll try to get it from the inside. And there's also a 10mm up here, but I'm hoping to not have to release it too badly where I need to disconnect anything. So that's what I'm going to do right now, is a little montage of me releasing all these 7mm screws. So with the 7 out and the 10 still there, we've now got a little bit of pry access where we don't go too far because we have our electric lock solenoid here too. But now we've got a little bit more wiggle room to creep a hand in here and get my rod placed in the right spot. Plus we'll be able to start our bolt on this side a little bit better since we're not working through a small hole. This bar is actually supposed to be straight. It fits in that hole there and the door handle here, and you open it and it pushes it down and releases the latch. So I'm going to take this to the shop and squeeze it straight again, and I'll be right back. I put a bend in the rod up here, hoping to ease the installation a little bit. I'm trying to get this rod so that it makes my handle fit in better. I'm having a lot of luck with it. Give me a little bit. So close. I get it in, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it out. So she's in like that. This door handle felt kind of cheap to begin with, and it is. So that worked. So this has been fairly frustrating, but the deal we're doing with here is Because my rod was so jangled up and I don't exactly know what the original one looked like, I've kind of put a, to use the door here, kind of a crook bend in it to shorten it up a little bit. And that got me just enough space to get my door handle back in. So now what I've got to do is fish my lock back into the hole here, which shouldn't be too tough. That little click was the latch mechanism for that. So with that, I should be able to drop some screws in and give it a test. This outside one obviously is quite easy to do. To start this one, you really need to do it by hand because this hole is at an angle and it won't start it square. There's a little beam that goes across the outside of the door that'll catch it if it drops, but it's probably easier to use a magnet tool to just get it back and try again, and it will take a couple attempts. You know, I can do this with the tips of my fingers. So that's very well started. Let's see if the door works right now. Perfect. So do I trust it? Sure, why not? Works fine. So we're gonna go ahead and leave it like that. So finalize your door latch by tightening this screw and this screw through the plastic hole here. Make sure they're nice and tight, but don't strip them, right? Loctite would probably be a great idea. And then insert your 7s again. So you do your 7s all the way around the door. So now they're all set. Now we're ready for the door panel again, so we can drop that on. Let me just drop the door panel with all our connectors, and don't forget, you want to pull through your cabling as best you can now. You can probably latch it up top on the windowsill here, and then reach down and pull these out. There's that set and that set. Now I can just go and line up my holes and push them in. You can take your little plastic trim piece up here. I'm not sure what this one's for besides a lot of creaking. And then we have our 2 big screws here. Trim piece number 1 up top is just to click on. Next we have our lamp here, which we put the bulb in, click, and then this way, and then in, and it goes click. And then we have all these buttons. We got our tweeter here, and we have our power mirror here. Replace out, and then it clicks in the front, wiggles down, and snaps in. It should be powered up. So we're good there. Let's double check the door again. Make sure it works. Perfect. Now don't forget to check it from the inside too. We did mess with a bunch of rods. And it looks like my little clip up here isn't doing very well, so we'll have to look at that too. See where it's a little bit out. You wouldn't buy a new truck like that, hopefully. Looks like I not quite clicked in the top there. Make sure we didn't break our window. Plus it lets us play with this clip some. our mirrors work, and I imagine everything else does. Awesome. Let me know in the comments, on my truck, if the keys are in the ignition and the door is open, it beeps at you. But even when the truck is running, it does that, which is kind of annoying, because if it's running, of course I know the keys are in the ignition. If your truck does that, let me know, or maybe my truck was modified so it does that. It's kind of annoying either way. If you have any questions on this, refer to my first video. If you have any questions on top of that, we'll go ahead and ask them, comments and stuff like that. And so that's how you repair, kind of how you get to this thing, your exterior door handle, through the interior of your door without having to remove this large black mid panel there. You can do it, especially if you have thin fingers. But that's how you replace it. So let's go with that. Oh, my little screen's coming off too a little bit, but I think that was doing it anyway. So cool. I'll slow-mo you out with something, I guess.